Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dairy Experience podcast. This is episode 8, Road to Robotics. My name is Graham Petrie, and I'm with dairy farmer Layne Greensill. So welcome, Layne.
Good morning, how are we doing?
Good. So the theme for this episode is explore the journey of a dairy farmer transitioning from traditional methods to the robotic technology. So Layne, do you want to tell us a bit about the farm we're on and the setup that you've got here with now?
Yeah. So this farm that we're on at the moment is a 30 hectare farm. We've owned this farm we're in our 9th season now, and this is obviously the first season of our robotics.
Yes.
So this has been a traditional grasslands dairy farm. It is a small unit, but when we purchased this farm, it was part of the idea of where we were going.
Well, I remember I remember I met you and Helen and Nick, I think, at a dairy barn conference in Timaru.
That's right. That was
2014, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we talked about a bit of this stuff then. So it's been a 10-year journey.
Yeah.
Rough, but that may have been before then.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's been a long time in the planning, which is why I think it's so successful for us now.
I would agree.
Yep. So, so traditional grassland farming here. We are winter milking on this farm as well. So both of our farms that were dairy farms, we have been winter milking on both farms. So we're probably not as traditional as normal, but that was one of the things that we discovered 18 years ago, that we could actually grow grass all year round on this coastal strip of land. So we decided that we would pursue winter milking as well and set our farms up so that we could calve 2 times a year and still be able to feed stock to produce milk through that winter period as well.
So being coastal, and I can see the sea from here, like and I'm not from here, this is Taranaki, did you get many frosts here?
No. So on this belt of coastal land, we would be lucky if we got 1 or 2 frosts a year.
Wow. Coming from Canterbury, it's hardly a frost, is it?
Yeah. So one of the things that governs what we do here is that strip of water out there. So our soil temperatures are really governed by the sea temperature.
Right.
So we're lucky if we can sit around that sort of 7 to 8 degrees soil temperature in the winter, which still allows us to grow ryegrass, which is great.
Yep. So the setup you have here now, tell us a bit about what you've got in the barn here.
Yep. So we've just about completed stage 1 of our project, and that was to get a new cowshed built with 2 robots in place to milk up to 150 cows. We started this process, as you say, about 10 years ago, and started looking at the future for us in farming. One of the things that we realised a while ago was that staffing issues were going to become paramount, and we have been dealing with that for a number of years now. We no longer have any staff between our 2 properties and the runoffs, apart from my daughter who manages this block. And that's a godsend for us now. We're able to do all the work ourselves within the family. And so we set out to look at what we could do in the future, and robotics came into that picture fairly early. And so we embarked on this journey of, would it work for us? Would it be cost effective for us? And if those 2 were a yes, then were we prepared to delve into the world of robotics, looking at the future? And both of the first 2 questions were a yes, it would work for us, and it was financially viable to do it, partly because the 2 dairy farms that we had both had cowsheds that needed to be rebuilt. So whilst we had to spend a lot of capital to get new cowsheds on those properties, it probably made the robotic system look a lot better because of the cost of that. So we embarked on looking at a system for down the track, but built for the moment for an ABC grazing system, which is working really well for us.
Good, good. So just a bit more about the history. So your farming background, like you've been dairy farming for a long time. Did you do other farming before that and come into it, or?
Yeah, so I'm agriculturally trained. I've done my time at Lincoln University, did my degree down there. I've been farming for probably close to 44 years since I put my first set of cups on a cow.
Yes.
And have a real passion for farming. I've done some beef farming, bit of cropping, and yeah, just really dairy is my main background. And so having that passion for it, I've always looked at how we could better our situation and what, what things we needed to implement to be able to keep driving our business forward, which is why we have a few other strings to our bow with what we do here, with the creamery and our own bottled milk, pasteurised bottled milk that we now supply.
So what kinds of systems did you milk them previously? Just the herringbones? Did you ever?
So my first experience in dairy farming was actually through a walkthrough.
Oh, right.
That's when I first sort of met cows and cups. And then we've milked in a herringbone shed at our first farming job for my parents' trust. Currently we have an old herringbone here on this property, and our other farm has a rotary cow shed. So I've delved into all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you talked about the shed, the age of the sheds, but what were some of the limitations of the herringbones just in being a herringbone?
Yeah, size of them. They're not easy to change. There's a lot of concrete work and steel work that needs to happen if you want to change something like that. So, I think we probably put our sheds under a bit of stress because we continue to up our numbers, and that takes more time and sheds, and we push them. So I know on the rotary shed on the other farm, at one point it's a 24 bale rotary, so it's sort of designed for that 200 to 280 cows. We were milking 380 cows through it, and it was a 4-hour milking in the morning and in the afternoon. But as young share milkers, we were pushing the barrow out to try and build our capital and our assets. So we just put up with that for a while. But and that's really what happens, I think, in a lot of shed situations. Is you build a shed for a certain size farm, and then the neighbour's farm comes up, or a piece of lease land comes available, and then you try and
common theme. So your initial awareness of robotics, like when did you did you see them somewhere, or just hear about them, or just thought you'd like to look into them?
I think that was part of the research that we were looking at. Where do we go to in the future? And so started looking and reading and researching, and found a little bit about the robots, and which caught my eye, and then proceeded to go down that track with the various robotic companies as to what did they offer, what was available, and then started doing some real hard research on that.
Were there any ideas you had about robots back then that ended up, now that you're in the game, that were false, that weren't what you were told, or what you sort of thought?
I think one of the benefits that we've had through this whole system is that because we've spent a lot of time researching, we've realised early on that the robots don't stop you from working, they change how you farm. And so once you've got that concept into your head, then when you actually have your system up and running, that all comes into play. And there's a number of people that I've spoken to already who are going, you don't have to get up in the morning and milk your cows. You've still got a farm. You're still a farmer, and that's what you have to do. But it is true. You don't have to get up at 5 o'clock and milk in the morning. Sometimes you have to get up early if the robot's ringing you saying I've got a problem. Yes. But that's technology. So it really it is working well for us. And I think along along that whole planning program, we realised that once we started up our robots, we had to park our old ways of farming and look at this whole new concept of what we were doing. Unfortunately, having Lauren, my oldest daughter, on board, she brings a lot of fresh ideas to farming as well, and so I've been open to that whole looking at all new things all the time and how we do things and go from there. So
farming with Lauren, like between the two of you, like your first impressions of the robotic system, like are they what your expectations were? Have they met your expectations, exceeded it, or where would you sort of lie there?
I think because, again, we've been looking down this track for 10 years, the robotics have changed in the 10 years since we started looking.
True, yes.
And I think my expectation now is that they are a lot better than what we were first looking at. The new A5 that we have in place is probably just quicker, faster, just supersedes the previous models. So, yeah, we're not having issues with our robots that you read about with people with an A3 or an A4 perhaps. So that's great. When I read that stuff like that on web pages, you think, oh, we don't have those problems. That's great.
Yes, confirms you made the right choice.
Yeah. So the robots are really performing really well for us.
So did you have any sort of doubts or hesitations within the whole process about the robotics, or how it was going to work, to what you thought? Or?
No, I didn't have any doubts at all. Maybe I should have. I don't know. But no, everything's going better than we expected it would, which for us is really good. Our cows are coming through the shed way earlier than what we were told that would happen. Our startup was much easier than we thought it would be. Production's great. Just the number of times the cows are coming to the shed now is supersedes what we were told we would be at. So yeah, we're really happy with the whole system.
That's great. So the information and ideas about robotics when you first sort of were thinking of it, where did you sort of find the actual hard information? Websites, discussions with people?
Websites was paramount to finding out information. You could sit at home and start reading at night about robotic systems and things like that. I've been to field days and had a look at those. Other farmers sort of spent quite a bit of time travelling around New Zealand looking at a lot of the sheds that have been built previously, and looking at sheds to go and asking the question, what are the problems you're having, so that we could then build our system avoiding those problems. We've spent a bit of time overseas looking around Europe as well, so that was great. Took time out to look at various ventures overseas as well.
And was that Europe, the Netherlands, so forth?
Europe, England, Ireland, Scotland, and then through the Netherlands and that as well, having a look at various systems there.
So you touched on labour before. Were there other factors that sort of led you to seriously consider the robots?
Well, I think, obviously we touched on labour and the issue that we could see coming up with that. Secondly, with a capital investment into new cow sheds. So did we want to go down that path, rebuilding cow sheds on 2 farms where we still had to employ labour? I mean, I've been farming for 44 years, so it's probably time for me to stand back from putting cups on cows, and I now have 2 robots that do that, so that's great. I think those were probably the main ones, and also looking at our own lifestyle now that we're sort of edging on the 60 year. We wanted some change as well in terms of what we were doing with our lifestyles, with grandkids coming through the system, and looking to the future and saying, well, how does this business roll in the future with the kids, or whether we're going to be involved in that?
So were there any other robot brands considered, and why was Layne chosen, if there was?
So we considered, I think there were 5 robotic systems available when we first started looking. The three main ones we looked at very closely, and we spent a lot of time with all three systems looking at where we went to. One of them was excluded partly because we just weren't confident with their systems, which left us to the red and the blue, I suppose you could say. And in the end, we decided that we would run with Layne. We've obviously Layne have a lot more presence in New Zealand, and so, service is paramount for what we're doing, and we're really fortunate to have Bromley Pumping on board with their franchise for Layne. And so I think, you can buy a car from a number of car yards, but it's the backup service that you get that really determines who you want to buy that car from.
Yep, exactly.
And the same as with robots. And so we decided to go with Layne, and really happy with that decision.
That's good to hear. So were there any pivotal moments or influences that helped solidify that you'd made the right decision, or to confirm that was the decision to make?
Pricing played a big part on that. Obviously, it's not a small investment, but it was a good investment for us, and the Layne price was good for where we were basing ourselves. I think the fact that this model that we've implemented, we were able to do in 2 stages, and so whilst we've put in 2 robotic milking machines, our plan was to be fully robotic. So not only did that include the 2 robots for milking, but it included the Juno for pushing feed. It also includes the Layne Discovery for cleaning the shed. So this shed has been built so that when the Discoveries turn up, they can start straight away. So rail heights, areas for cleaning, all of that's been organised for that.
Future-proofed it for it.
Yep, future-proofed it. And then the key is the Layne Vector, which will then take out a certain amount of labour in terms of feeding cows. And so we looked at Layne, and for that reason they provided all of that. If we wanted all of those robots under a different brand, they couldn't supply everything.
The whole package.
So it was a whole package deal for us to make that happen. So so that would certainly help.
And so were there any changes in the type of cows you valued? Like, I know you've not done it for that long, but is there already an idea in your mind of the type of cow that you want? Like, there's milking speed, teat placement, those sort of things? Yep.
So we actually started breeding for our robotic farm here about 8 years ago.
Right.
And so that was part of our vision. I suppose you can have that vision and go, that's where we want to go to. But if you don't start putting pegs in the ground and working towards it, all of a sudden you've got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. So we said we can start breeding for robotics early in the piece. If it never happens, those cows can still be milked on a conventional farm and will still work just as well, but they will work even better in a robot. So we started changing our breeding system or the semen suppliers so that we were breeding for robot-ready cows. And so that happened 8 years ago, and as we've got closer to the date, we've started adding traits that are better and better for the robotic systems, including teat placement, stomach capacity, all of those sorts of things that animal health, all of those sorts of things that help with
and you find it's not too difficult to get the genetics in New Zealand that you need?
No, we've got a company, CMEX, that we're working with, and they supply. Obviously, they're in the Netherlands and Europe, and they supply a lot of semen to farmers who are milking through robotics, and they actually have semen which is classed as robot-ready for cows. So so we're well down that path now. Yes.
So was there some changes in your mindset that you needed for robots as opposed to what you had, herringbone, pasture-based?
There's a huge mindset that we needed to change. So, in a traditional farming system where you are twice a day or once a day, there's that whole pull that you have to be at the cow shed, you have to have labour there, to do that. we are very flexible in our timing now as to what we do. You know, we can be up here feeding out in the shed at the feed lanes at 5 o'clock in the morning, or I can be up here at 8:30 in the morning, depending on what the time that gate set is. So yeah, we had to park a lot of that traditional farming practices and move into the robotic age, which we were able to do because we'd spent lots of time knowing that this was the future and where we were going to go with it. So that was big. Grass management, that has changed a lot for us. While we're still traditionally grass-based, we can feed our cows everything else they need on a feed face. We're not wasting feed in the paddock any longer, and so that's a real plus for us. But grass is our cheapest form of feed, and so we have to make sure that we are utilising that as best we can, whilst not inhibiting our production. So that's still a key driver for us.
Did you have any worries during the sort of the pre-installation time about the robot systems, or if it was going to work as you'd hoped it would? Or
I think probably once a week I had this cloud would come over me asking me whether I'd done the right thing.
Yes.
And I'm really pleased because I'm 100% now that we did the right thing. There's always little things that pop up that you need to look at in terms of installation and making sure you get it right. Obviously, when you're putting a lot of concrete down, you want to do it right the first time. And so it was constantly looking at plans, checking designs, making sure that we had cow flow right, that everything was going to be best for the cows, and then making that happen. So yeah, we did there were a lot of design and build changes that we did along the way, and through consultation with Layne and engineers and concrete layers and things like that, I think we got it pretty good.
Layne, could you tell us a bit about how the cows were trained prior to the startup, like how that process happened? And
Yep. So we were told as we got closer to the startup that we would need a lot of labour in the shed on the first couple of days, physically pushing the cows into the robots, getting them used to the robots, so that we could start milking them. I remember saying to the Bromley fitters that don't worry about that. I'll deal with the cows. You deal with the robots. You make sure you got that ready. So what we did is, knowing a little bit of the psyche of a cow, for the week leading up to our startup, we actually started bringing the cows through the shed every day, twice a day. So we would open the gates, hold the cows back after milking, and bring them into the shed. We started feeding out supplements in the shed for them, and then we just gave them access to the shed an hour a day, morning and night, and then we'd bring them in, try and keep them calm in the shed. New cows on new concrete is always a recipe for tears. But we just brought them into the shed, and then slowly we'd open up another area of the shed and let them have a look at that and sniff round and poop everywhere, and then slowly we just opened the gates onto the robots, and we just allowed them to walk through, and we'd make sure that we had a little bit of molasses and a little bit of meal in the robots. And then by the startup day, first cow walked straight into the robot, and we're away from there.
Yes.
So that went really well.
Yes, that sounds great. So the actual process for this building and for the robot, so this is a greenfield site, so you had to do earthworks, and then tell us a bit about that process.
Yeah, so once we got the green light to make it all happen, obviously we'd done a lot of planning prior to that, and so a lot of the work here has been done ourselves. We have enough gear to make things happen. So we started the earthworks in October 22, and we were allowed to remove certain amount of soil prior to a date. So we sort of worked within the regional council rules, and we stripped all the topsoil off the site and got it ready to start for the major earthworks. The weather that year was an absolute nightmare for us. And so it probably extended the build time by 3 or 4 months. But we just got underway and started, getting the site done.
So the pace of progress improved once the roof was on here.
Yeah. The shed itself we purchased the shed through Superior Dairy Barns in Invercargill, and they had the shed built in China and shipped direct to site for us. It took us 5 days to build the shed, and then we had to wait for 6 weeks to get the roof on because the winds decided that they weren't going to play ball.
Yes.
But we got the roof on, and once the roof went on, we were undercover, and so that allowed us to then really start getting the speed of things running. We were able to pour concrete in winter, or in the wet, and so that worked really well for us. And basically, the whole installation went pretty seamlessly after that. Yeah.
So you touched on the weather. Were there any other challenges or surprises during the building installation process?
No, not really. Everything pretty much went to plan once we managed to get the first concrete down and get the infrastructure up and get the roof on. Everything after that was pretty good. We had a couple of little flaws in the concrete that we fixed up, but everything else was pretty seamless, really.
Yeah. And you've touched on the startup, but you found the startup process sort of easier, or if that's the right word, but smoother than what you'd been told it would probably be?
Yeah, I think, obviously Layne do a lot of startups around the world. For us, it went a lot easier than we expected. And I think, having the cows calm and happy to walk around the shed was a big part.
So that pre-robot training and just running them through and stuff was a real...
Yeah, I think there's a lot you could do in a new startup to actually make it work very seamlessly.
Yeah.
And so, for us, it went really smoothly. We were happy with our processes as well as Layle's processes as well. And now, we've got it running.
Pretty happy.
Full steam.
Yep. How long did it take to get the cows used to the new way of milking? I know you talked about running them through and stuff. So the day that it was all plumbed, all ready to go, like how did they find it? How did you find it?
I think in the first 2 days of startup, we only physically had 2 cows that we needed to push into the robots. We were lucky that we started mid-season so that there wasn't pressure on us to continue to get production as well as training cows. That worked really well for us because, obviously we were halfway through that lactation anyhow. So we managed to, give them a little bit of breathing room to make that happen. The whole ABC grazing system and fetching cows has been brilliant for us. I think we are now week 14 into startup, and I think we haven't fetched cows for probably nearly 8 weeks now.
That's right.
I don't know I'm not sure what we've done to make this as good as it has been, but clearly our cows are happy with what they have, and so we aren't fetching cows anymore. We've actually just started our autumn calving. We've got 15 fresh heifers coming into the shed. Half of those have calved, and they've got the system down packed now. They're in probably 2 weeks into the shed. We did put those heifers into the herd for a week, and we trained them through the shed before they started calving. They realised that there's feed here at the shed, so they're now happy to come back, go through the system, go through the robots. So that's worked really well for us as well.
So I've always been told heifers will learn quicker than mature cows. Has that been your experience? Were those those 2 cows you had to push in, were they older cows?
One's a pet cow, so all she wanted to do was stand out there and have a rub and things.
You're always going to push her, I think.
Yeah, but she's learnt how to do it. She's been through, she's dried off, and she's due to calve again shortly. So it'll be nice to see her come back and go straight through the robots.
Yes.
I think the heifers are they've been really quick at picking the system up, and we watched them this morning. They'll come straight through the robots into the feed lanes and then back out to graze in the pastures again. So happy cows, happy times.
And with the whole startup, the cow management system we have is Horizon. Was Was there a big learning curve to get the best out of that, or
I
how
think
did you find it?
I'm going to be learning horizons for a long time. Fortunately, with Lauren, she took that side as part of her job, and so I focused on getting the cow into the robot. She focused on where does the cow go once she leaves the robot, which grazeway, which,
Dealing with the data that it comes in.
Yeah, so I'm still learning that process. Lauren had 10 days of holiday recently, and I was thrown in the deep end. I think she put the app on my phone, gave me my phone, said, "Here's the app. I'm out of here. See you later." So and we were mating at that time, so that was great. Sometimes you get thrown in the deep end and you learn really fast.
Quite good, isn't
and,
it? Really?
I don't think I made too many mistakes while she was away, and any that I did, I'm not going to tell her about anyhow.
No, she won't hear this. So would you do anything differently if you did another startup, or recommend to anyone that comes to look about startup that you think, I should have done that? Or
knowing how we did our startup and how well it went, there's probably a number of things that if I was asked about it by another farmer, how do I do my startup as like you have, there's probably a lot of stuff that you need to talk about. We were fortunate that our cows were very quiet on this farm because it's a smaller farm anyhow. But just having stock that know how to flow without tension, without stress, really helps that whole system. There's a lot that you can do in a startup now to make that go quite smoothly.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, that's good. So your operations today with the robots, but you said the cows have adapted really well. So has there been any that just didn't take to it?
We had one cow actually who we've named Mad Dog, and she's the cow that you can always see standing at the back of the mob with her ears up. So she's a cow that probably the robots suit really well because she doesn't like human interaction. And so first day she decided that she was going to run through the robot, and it got stopped partway through by the front feed bin. But she's now accepted that she's more than happy to come into the robot and be milked her 2.7 times a day rather than me handling her in the cow shed. Yes. So we just keep it. We've agreed on a certain distance that we keep away from each other, and she's happy with that. So there's always going to be cows that don't like that human interaction, but are quite happy to have an interaction with a machine, and she's one of them.
So there's just you and Lauren do the labour on the farm most.
Pretty much. Lauren's partner Reese helps out when he's on farm. And the rest of the family, my wife, we're all involved, and we all pick up bits and pieces along the way, but primarily it's Lauren and I that are in the thick of it.
So what are some of the benefits you've seen from going from the older herringbone shed to the robot in your eyes? What do you think?
Time of work for one is for us is big now. We can arrange a lot of other stuff happening around what we do on the farm. Lauren's got one child and a second on the way, so clearly as a mother, she's got has time to be able to do those things that she needs to do as well, as long as her other job. And so in terms of just that whole programming of time, when we have to be on farm, when we don't have to be on farm, that's a huge benefit for us. There's always going to be lots of work in farming. Now we don't have that two particular times of the day where we're tied to being on farm and milking cows. And the other day was a prime example. It was 5 o'clock and I was leaving the farm and the cows were walking up to the shed. It was great.
Yes, that sounds good. Have you seen any production gains since installing the robots?
With the ability to have real-time information coming from the robots, we're seeing different information that we've been able to collect in the past. Our production is well up already this season on where we have been previously. But I think we're too early at the moment to be able to make correct diagnosis of production changes.
Interpreting that data.
Yeah, and interpreting that data. So, we're early in this startup of this new setup. So I think what we're seeing is definitely inflated production, but it's really hard because, last year we were once a day because things were changing and we had a big workload on. So, I think the signs that we're seeing is definitely improving production. So we've just got to keep monitoring that information that we get and go from there.
And you mentioned about you were leaving as the cows are coming up. So in your personal life, you've seen a bit more time to do other things in your life?
Well, at the moment,
not tied here?
Yeah, at the moment it's... I get a lot more time to catch up on some of the workload that wasn't done whilst we were building this new shed. And I reckon within 12 months we will have caught up and we will be on track, which will then allow more time to do other things. And that's part of where the plan was at.
Has there been advantages you've found that you weren't aware of prior to transitioning to robots?
I think what we've realised is that when we planned of being in a robotic system, all of those things have happened for us. So there's been no real new shocks that have come through, but it's been really nice that things that we've thought about would happen have happened, and so it's been a really smooth process for us.
Have there been any changes to your cell count?
Our cell count's gone down.
Right.
So we've just been monitoring lately this year at this time compared with last year, and our cell count's about half of what it was, and it was low last year, but now it's even lower. And so that's really pleasing, and I think that shows just how relaxed the cows are coming into the shed. Clearly a relaxed cow doesn't have a high somatic cell count like other cows do. So that's been rewarding for us as well, and it's great for our consumers of our own bottled milk. Because they happy cows, happy milk. It's great. So
Have there been any changes to your cost system, or do you think it's a bit early to sort of get a handle on that?
Again, 3 months into the system, we're still analysing costs and things like that. I think probably two of the costs that we are predicting are going to be higher are going to be our chemical cost for the cleaning in the robots, and also energy power. But we need to analyse those bills and look at them and see just what's going on, rather than shooting from the hip and going, we think this is higher, or that might be higher, because like in terms of the chemicals, we're buying different chemicals and we're buying at different times of the year and in different quantities. So you can't buy a 200 litre now when you'd only be buying a 20 litre normally, and then go, it's way dearer. So that's that whole program. But again, real-time information gives you the ability to actually look at those things and make those decisions on what's happening.
So looking ahead, future plans, potential expansion. I don't know if we've talked about it, but having a housed barn part of this building.
So stage 2 for us was always to look at extending the shed by another 50 odd metres and having a feed lanes and cow bedding in place. I think the most expensive part of the shed's now been done with all of the equipment and stuff that's in it. So we'll be looking to, once we can, get that second stage going, we'll look at putting that in and helping that, because that will give us the ability then to be able to have the animal consistently eating the same feed types day in, day out, which makes them a little bit of a production station. So that's well on the plans to doing that. Hopefully down the track there'll be a bit more free time for all of us, and we can do a bit more travel, maybe head back overseas and boast about how good robotic farming is in New Zealand. So
looking back at your journey, is there anything you would do differently? And if you had to do it all again, would there be stuff you would change?
I think there'd be nothing actually. I think we've got it. I'm happy with where we're at the moment, and I think we've got it 99% right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back to 10 years of looking, learning, and planning.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to do it all again, I think probably I would have liked to have done this 10 years ago, but that meant planning it 10 years prior. It certainly would have benefited us by doing it 10 years ago, but it took a long time to work the system out. So I've said to a couple of guys that have been through the shed already who are looking at doing it, don't take 10 years doing it. Come and talk to me. I can short circuit your whole planning
Yes.
and make it easier for you because
Yes.
I've been down that path.
Yes. So, sort of in conclusion, looking back at the whole journey, what do you think are the 3 key advantages you've found in milking automatically?
Well, obviously labour.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a real advantage for us. Being able to feed, we thought we were always feeding cows properly, but we're feeding them twice as much now as we were before, and our cows are a lot happier. So that's been another advantage. I think another thing that I've picked up on is that this whole project has been a family project. So the advantage for me is that we've always got a lot of family involvement and a lot of,
Because your son Nick built this?
Yeah, my son's a builder, so he's got his own construction company, so he built the shed for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a lot of input from Nick as well. My youngest son, Lockie, he worked for us for quite a bit of time as well. And our daughter Grace, she's been helping out with it as well, various bits and pieces, sitting around at night putting collars together to put on cows and things. So for me, that's been a huge advantage of actually being able to bring the family together. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we looked at was saying, currently our properties are owned by our trust, but we want to change that to a company so that the kids can buy into the company if they want to, for future proofing that down the track. So so there's been some real advantages for us by actually having the whole family involved, which has been great. So so those are key things for us. I think I'm at the age where I need to start looking about slowing down and getting out of it. But to do that means that somebody has to step in, and now family are the younger kids are stepping into that. So that for me, that was really quite satisfying.
Oh, look, thank you, Layne. I really appreciated your time and listening to what you had to say, and I'm sure our listeners will agree. So, look, thank you, and all the best for the future, and we'll keep an eye on it and just enjoy what's going on. So thank you.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.